Today on Class Action, the Wizard of Woz. Our special guest, Steve Wozniak. Best known as the co-founder of Apple Computer, along with its turtleneck-wearing CEO, Steve Jobs. But it was the Woz alone who built the first personal computer, the Apple I, and later, the Apple II, the device that launched the personal computer revolution. While he went from computer geek to cult icon, the Woz mixed in a bit of teaching, too. Yes, a multi-millionaire mentor for public school students. And when he wasn't clicking his keyboard, the Woz was clicking his heels on Dancing with the Stars and showing the tech world he really does think different.
Well, certainly Apple Computers made Steve Wozniak wealthy and famous, but how many multimillionaires do you know who would open up their homes to disadvantaged kids? Get on your Segway, because we're taking you to Camp Woz.
Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
I started missing a lot of days from school.
I just flipped out, like lost control.
I was being really bad at home.
How I thought that my dad died is all my fault.
I have financial issues. I have a daughter to take care of.
I want some people to look up to me instead of looking down.
The Segway. That clip is a rough cut from a documentary entitled Camp Woz about that week. Boy, you love that Segway. Are you still tooling around on that?
A big part of my life, for usefulness and for fun, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that week at Camp Woz. You look at you only see a glimpse of you there with the kids, but you can see that there's a deep connection between you and those kids.
Well, my friend Joe Patain put it on. He was putting it on very much modeled after what I had done for so many years, setting up classes for kids, giving them computers, giving them high quality instruction and teaching them that, and giving them another thing to do rather than be out on the streets. Right. So it was just kind of a great part to be around it. It was held at my home.
Right.
So, I kind of provided a home and a garage and some inspiration to the kids. We had some very top level people. We had Oscar winners, Tony winners, Grammy Award winners, telling the kids about their own problems growing up, their own troubles in life, and as part of an enrichment to the kids to feel that there was something they could do if they had the right resources, if somebody believed in them particularly.
And was that really the connection for you too, of having people that sometimes feel like they're on the margin, people don't really understand them, that can't really see their brilliance yet, and haven't had that connection with someone like you to say, hey, here I am.
Well, I care very strongly about everyone, especially those who are on the margin, whether they have the abilities or not. Some of them are just disadvantaged in certain ways, maybe they have mental problems, whatever, but I care so much about them because they have some valuable contribution to make, and I just feel it deeply in my heart.
And Camp Woz wasn't just about computers. I know it's very well-rounded. Why are you teaching them about all those other things, too? What did you want them to grasp from that?
Well, when I taught my own classes, they were about computers. But I also tossed in a little bit of talk about life and how you might make decisions and little philosophies, things that probably a real teacher in a real school couldn't do, but I was voluntary. Some of these things where you're touching on, are you kind of influencing our kids about values? Should you copy music or not? That sort of stuff. And always an element of fun. Always an element of fun, because the most important thing is, it's not so important what I taught. It was more important that I motivated them to want to learn. And nowadays I say, the most important thing you could do is, if you have a student, get them to want to learn, to enjoy it. There's no way in the world, even if you don't teach them the right stuff, they're going to find it. They're going to learn it on their own. It's going to become an interest in their life. So I bring this element of joy and fun very much into the learning experience.
Let's talk about you. It's computer giant in the school teaching. I mean, what was that like for you to go into the classrooms?
It was a little strange at first. I had a goal all my life, though, to be a fifth grade teacher. And now I look back and I have a little bit of regret that I didn't go and accept offers to teach college, because I would have done very well there and maybe had more direct contribution. But I had wanted to do this all my life. And after something like Apple, your big success, you have all the money, it's hard it takes you into a different life where you're going to be a big wig, you're going to invest all your money in companies and have power and run programs and tell others what to do. And I don't like to be that way. So I wanted to remain the person I would have been without Apple. And that's largely why I did it. I had a lot of money, so I was giving computers to school back in those early days when schools had to try to find computers any place they could. And then I thought, well, you don't give computers, you don't give money, you give your own time if you care. Yeah. So I said, I'll try it. I didn't know if I could teach. I was scared at first.
What did you get out of it?
What I got out of it was, well, a lot of pleasure, and I couldn't lose because I could finance it. So I didn't have somebody looking over my shoulder and evaluating me and judging me. I didn't have any responsibilities like that. I got a lot of fun out of seeing the kids' excitement when they learn things. It's almost like very, very young infants. Everything that they learn, just about, water in a glass might make them start laughing for some reason. It was that kind of joy in the kids. They enjoyed knowing things that other people didn't know.
Well, what did you take away when you were in the classroom? What did you learn about the school system in general? What were your assessments about California education?
Well, I liked being well accepted in my schools and my school districts and
Is it Los Gatos School District that you've been primarily involved in?
Los Gatos Union School District. That was the middle school and elementary schools. And I helped get on committees and decide what technologies the schools should have and who we should hire. I would be on interview committees. And so I was working hands-on, even crimping wires and plugging in Ethernet cables, that sort of thing, into the classrooms back in the wired school days. So, so it was kind of like neat. I felt like this is something, this combines two things I always wanted to do in my life: technologies and schools and education. And we're really, helping these kids, giving them a little head start. Right. So the whole, fear about computers will go away sooner, and they'll get more skilled and able to use them well. And then right when I started my classes, the internet came along. Networks, the internet, and before that there were things like AOL was on the Macintosh only, and so the kids now had a way to really delve out into the world and start getting answers and starting making communication with other people. It was just an incredible time.
You get very excited when you talk about it.
Well, it was, every day was exciting because everything you were doing was, oh my gosh, whoever believed these things would be possible. And what we're doing is so far different than anything our parents ever did. There's an excitement to that. And I think that kids really like doing something different that hasn't been done in the world before, and we tend to lead them to places that we've done it before. We tend to teach subjects the way we learned it, the subjects we learned, the way we learned it. And we don't really let them go and do some very unusual things that nobody talks about yet.
Now, when you see the state of California education now, what are your thoughts?
Well, even back when I taught for quite a long time, I've had very negative, low thoughts about it. Now, the supervisors in our district cared so much. They did everything they could with the resources, the money they had, to provide the best education they possibly could. They were very good. They weren't wasteful in any way, but the amount of money in California to schools is the real problem. And when I was teaching, I would look in these big magazines that go to all the teachers around and, administrators of school districts around the country. And California was 50th in the country in class size. In my own experience, I could teach 17 kids and know where everyone's head was and keep them all engaged. And when I had 30, I couldn't. And there's a limit. Class size shouldn't be that large. And yet California was 50th in the nation. Mississippi was 49th, and they were far from us. And then I started looking back, and it dealt back to the Proposition 13 stuff. But there were tax override elections. People in a city could say, we want a little more for our kids in our schools, and we'll vote more.
For a parcel tax.
So what I did, so I paid the money for the mailings, about $10,000 in Cupertino, to send mailings to all the people, residents, and they voted 64% for the parcel tax override, and it lost. Because you needed 2/3 of the vote by Proposition 13. Then I sponsored it the next year. It lost, same way. Then I did it in Los Gatos, and it passed. And eventually Cupertino passed theirs. So eventually a couple of cities, had a little bit of extra money. But now they're afraid to ever run the election and boost the amount, because they're afraid when you need 2/3 of the votes, only 1/3 of the families have kids in school, and the ones that don't just don't want to pay. Right. Especially in economic hard times, it's very difficult to get that vote. It made me start thinking a lot about education, because we're taught that education's a right, meaning everyone should have it, but it's not really a right. It's not a privilege. It's an obligation. If you don't go to school, somebody's going to be in jail.
Right.
So it's an obligation, but we'll call it a right. Once we called it a right, the government had to supply it, and the government supplies portions of its money based on votes. And a family of 5 gets no more votes than a family of 2. That's why schools and kids in schools are unfairly disadvantaged as far as how much money really should go there.
So how do you want the system changed? What would you do? If you could wave your Woz wand, what would you do?
I don't think the system can be changed right now, but I would like a family of 5 to have 5 votes. That's simple. And then, families of 5 would just be counted more than families of 2. Doesn't sound unfair to me. A farmer gets to vote for candidates that are pro-farm bills, and